Welcome to the SoleMates podcast. My name is Gorgon. I'm the sports scientist for My Foot Function. I'm sat here with Joe, who is co-founder of My Foot Function and sports coach, Rasmus, physiotherapist for Wide Footwear, and Melker, CEO of Wide Footwear. So
Good to be here again.
So we embarked on quite a journey in Sri Lanka, and there was quite a few challenges that we faced during there. So initially when we got there, Melker, what was your kind of initial feeling, and what was the first kind of few days like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all very optimistic when we touched down. It was a long trip, 22 hours or something, and then we got there, of course, in the massive heat, hot climate, and we were all sweating, but I think optimism is the word that comes to my mind, and excitement to get going.
Yeah, surreal feelings like this is finally happening.
Yeah,
like we planned it for like a year.
Yeah. And then, I think we're all just eager to get going, right? We kind of said, okay, the first day will be a little bit more relaxed. We'll kind of sense the surroundings a little bit, maybe a dip in the ocean. I don't know if we did that even the first day, and then we got to the hotel. And man, we kind of got started right away.
Yeah, we had a great start.
Yeah, I mean, so we met this lady at the hotel. She was some kind of a manager of the cleaning personnel, I think.
But you're missing the first hotel, the beautiful hotel that we went to.
Do you mean the one that we put trust in you to book?
Correct.
Genius level booker.
Yeah, like booking.com level, Genius 5.
We had all our faith in you.
Yeah. That was a bad hotel. And I think actually that's probably the only bad hotel I gave you guys.
I mean, that was a blessing in disguise, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the only bad hotel. But it was a blessing in disguise, because hadn't that happened, maybe we wouldn't have found that first hotel. Sure. We actually had that first level of success where we met the head of the house cleaning department. And from there we got...
Formerly known as housekeeping.
Housekeeping. I used to work at a hotel as well. I should know this. Yeah, she was a lovely lady, and she quickly gathered pretty much the whole staff at that hotel. How many did we get? Like 30 or 40? No, even 40 people.
Yeah, I mean, she started by, she was very curious. Like, okay, you have all this equipment. What is that for? And we started by scanning her. Mm-hmm. And she said, oh, this is interesting. Let me send the staff. And we were, not really prepared to get going right away, right? But before we knew it, we had like a line outside of the room.
Yeah, I think by the time she left, minutes later, we had a line outside our hotel room, didn't we? Yeah. All the other guests walking by, seeing all these staff lined up outside our hotel room. It was surreal.
It was crazy, and like the feet were so good; they were so aligned, like the big toes.
Yeah.
And,
apart from hers, actually.
That's
true.
Yeah,
she had probably one of the worst feet in the whole journey that we had. Yeah,
and gave her story to that as well, which was quite interesting.
What was that again? Could you recap it?
Just that she's always worn those shoes. So
those
it's very
super tight ones.
Yeah, very tiny little kind of. I would describe them as like ballerina shoes. And she just always worn them. Yeah, and always had foot pain. Yeah. So that was the thing. So like it was the common thing that we hear, whereby you can no longer take your shoes off because the feet hurt more without the shoes.
Yeah, that's true.
But she really had an hallux valgus, and like
severe.
One of the worst ones we saw the whole journey.
Yeah.
But a lot of the other ones had like this big gap between the big toe and the second toe. And I remember thinking we're just starting, and it's still like we're not even seeing one hallux valgus except her then. But and like back in Sweden during the pilot study, we saw almost only hallux valgus and like maybe one aligned big toe. But there was completely the opposite. And that was mind blowing. Like great start.
Right, you were like shocked if you saw some kind of deformity at the beginning there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then while in the pilot study, you were shocked if you saw a good feet.
Yeah.
A good foot.
Polar
opposites. It's polar opposites, definitely.
Yeah. So that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to the
so then the days after that first initial success.
Because I was gonna say the first day we had 39 people in the study. I think we were gathering at dinner. Everybody was excited. We were on track. We got people on the first day, which we hadn't really planned. And then for the next 4 days, 0 participants in the study.
Yeah.
More or less.
Yeah. And I mean, we got the study done, so we got over 1,000 people. But I think it can be interesting to hear about this, struggle that we actually had in those days, because I think one thing that we realized was we had planned almost everything, right? But you always learn that when you're actually doing it, there's some things you haven't planned.
Yeah.
I think one thing we had maybe neglected a little bit was the time it would take to actually recruit the people.
Yeah.
And when none of the tactics that we had those days worked.
I think a big problem was the hierarchy all the time, because we asked for permission to scan people at a store, for example, and the manager was not like, he wanted to contact his manager to take the decision, and that manager needed to contact his manager, and that manager was on vacation. It was
or
like
living in another country.
it was
hotel.
like all this hierarchy coming in the way. Like that's like basically all our tactics going there kind of failed those 4 days.
Right, like going to the shoe stores didn't work. Going to some hotels didn't work. Some restaurants we tried where, the restaurant manager was out in another city and couldn't get a hold of him. Nothing really worked in those days.
No.
So,
and it was through no lack of trying. I mean, we were carrying that equipment everywhere with us, flagging down taxis, tuk-tuks, going from store to store, hotel to hotel, restaurant to restaurant. We even, if you remember the party that we were at, so we discovered in the hotel that we were staying at that they were going to have a party, right? And a few hundred people, and we thought, great, they gave us permission to scan, and here we are with a party going on, and we're setting up our equipment, trying to recruit people from the party.
And we had one lady do the scanning, but she didn't do the questionnaire, so we couldn't include her in the study.
No.
She wanted to go back to the party, which I understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
so it's such a difficult few days.
Yeah, super difficult. And then, one little tradition that we had started within the 4 of us, since we invited you guys to come to Portugal with us to develop the Arcus, was that we figured out we had a shared interest for ice cream. And so we basically just said, okay, why don't we reset? Let's go get some ice cream. I know you, Joe, you searched for like the best ice cream place in the area. And we walked there, as I remembered it. And there was this little...
And it was a long walk as well.
It was a long walk, maybe 30 minutes or something, maybe longer.
Yeah, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, yeah.
And there was this little area with a bunch of small shops. And the only shop that was closed, wasn't that the ice cream?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it almost felt like everything was going against us at that point.
Yeah.
Definitely low point.
Yeah. And the other places that were open, we didn't want anything. So we basically just turned around, walked back to the road. And what happened then?
Well, I think you looked up to the sky and said, please let someone help us. Please let there be a sign.
I said, universe, like, help us, give us a sign.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we hear tuk tuk.
It was literally like
how many
3 seconds.
Yeah. 3 seconds.
It was so like... You were like desperately, your whole body like looking into the sky and like almost like, moving like really like, and I was like, what is he doing? And like, dear universe, please help us. And then like it literally took like 3 seconds, and the tuk-tuk with Mr. Shiffnas came, and it was like, in hindsight, it was the greatest moment maybe.
Yeah, because we were a bit hesitant in that moment. We were like, okay, what are we gonna do next? Yeah. And then he said, I'll take you anywhere. And I think one of us asked him, like, do you know of any ice cream places? Yeah. And he just said, I'll take you to the best ice cream in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And on the way there, I remember him asking, these questions like, what are you guys doing in Sri Lanka? Being quite interested. And we just explained the study that we were doing. I think you, Gorgon, you were sitting in my lap at this point, because there's not really, the tuk-tuks are not really built for four grown men. And he just seemed really interested. And then he took us to the ice cream, started asking more questions. And then he finally just said, hey, do you guys just want a personal driver for the coming week? Or I can't remember his offer. And that's kind of where the study took a turn, right? Because everything changed from that moment.
Exactly.
And so many things aligning. For example, him knowing the language that we needed for translation, like going to the barefoot communities.
Right, he spoke Tamil, the local language.
There's 2 languages in Sri Lanka, right? There's Sinhalese and there's Tamil. The majority speak Sinhalese, but a lot of the barefoot populations in the villages speak Tamil, which are people that emigrated from India to northern regions of Sri Lanka to the tea plantations.
Which was crucial then, because he could translate everything for us, which would have been much harder if there was someone who didn't speak Tamil.
Because we did have someone else arranged through a contact here in Sweden, a Sri Lankese guy, and he had set us up with a potential other guide, which we had been in contact with and were going to meet. So I particularly was hesitant of Shiffnas, but I'm glad you guys turned me around, because I think if we hadn't gone Shiffnas, it probably would have gone differently.
Yeah, I think for me the turning point was that, you know, I was talking to Shiffnas about the price, and I was using your already contact, saying, "Hey, could you do it for the same price?" Shiffnas was a bit hesitant to do that, but he said, "Okay, I can do it." And the thing was that the big turning point for me was when he said, and he understood our mission. He said, "Okay, but tomorrow I get you 100 people, you know."
To include in the study. If
To
that's
include
not
in the
clear
study,
yet.
yeah, not just randomly 100 people. And I think we all looked at each other, didn't believe him, right? I mean, for
Definitely
myself,
didn't
didn't
believe
believe him. I thought,
Definitely skeptical. About
and particularly because of the 3 days we had, that we had been trying for such a long time.
Because he made it seem easy, right? He was like, yeah, I'll just get you 100 people there, 100 people there.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And from that point on, there was still like not a huge amount of commitment, really. He just really wanted to help. Yeah, I mean, where were we the next day? We were in his house.
Right, so he picked us up pretty
Yeah.
much the next morning, right?
Yeah.
And he started he had rented a van then that we could use
Yeah.
for the foreseeable future, and took us to his neighborhood, and pretty much the whole neighborhood of those of over 18 were included in the study,
Yeah.
which was quite amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fantastic for me that somebody has that kind of impact in a neighborhood like that. You know, we were there in their living room. Collectively, we just got on with it because it was a flood of people. You know, it was there was no stopping us for several hours. There was cricket teams coming. There were all the neighbors. There was family. Then when we were done there, he said, "Okay, now we're going to the next house," and then we were driving to the family house and continuing the study there. It was fantastic.
And overall, it was so amazing to just see how the community came together, right?
Yeah.
Just, I think one thing that we all realized in Sri Lanka was also how helpful people were.
Yeah.
And it almost, like coming from a Western perspective, you never really see that here.
No.
People just want to help with nothing in return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people, So, and I think after maybe a week or two, we started to understand that wow, these people really want to help us.
Yeah.
And they don't expect anything in return, which made it maybe more fun to actually help them in the ways that we could. And we like you said, we brought food and drinks to these communities to help them out a little bit. And
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely inspiring to be in that environment where it's such close knit community and family helping each other. And he said that even Shiffnas, where because they don't have a lot, but what they do have is each other, and they tend to help each other get through the struggles that they do face, whether it's the economic struggles or whatever they're facing there. And that's generally what brings people together compared to here, where everyone's kind of quite independent, and you don't see that here, or you wouldn't expect that here. So it was a very beautiful experience to experience that as well.
Or even them just taking us in for dinner that first night, right? They just really wanted us to have dinner at their house.
True.
And just they're making everything for us, even though maybe should have been the opposite, right? But it's their culture to just be so welcoming and really help out.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't come to Sri Lanka to experience that really, but that was more or less life-changing, I would say, to get that perspective and that experience, really, to feel how people with so little in one sense can give so much and be so rich in another sense.
Yeah.
So an amazing experience, and like the community that they have, like in Sweden, you know, there's so many single people living in single apartments all over the place, having like really no community.
Yeah.
And they being like one big family and like really having each other backs and
Where the material stuff doesn't really matter that much. It's more about
and it's so generous as well with the little material stuff they have. They really like just share.
Yeah. In one way, they have so little, but they have so much stuff that we've lost a long time ago. Especially like you said, where the families are living together.
Yeah.
They're so close. They do things on a daily, every other day basis. It was really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, like three generations just living together on different floors,
And they also have one thing we don't have in the West: almost perfect feet.
True.
Seriously, it's like
true.
so many things that.
I mean, how amazing was that when on that first day the first day with Shiffnas anyway, where we were there, and now we were seeing real numbers because of course we had the hotel where we had 30 to 40, but now we're in, you know, where we have 100 more, and it's like, guys, seriously, this is incredible. the function of the feet was fantastic.
And that was such a turning point, I think, also mentally for us, because we were starting to see, okay, we can actually do this for
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
We have a clear now path to get to the 1,000 people that we wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, Shiffnas had a plan of where we could go around Sri Lanka. We had the van. We could fit. There was one point where we went out to find someone who could build a table for us,
True.
so that we could place the equipment on.
Yeah.
If we needs to stop somewhere where,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
But that's also a thing that we didn't plan or think about. Like the scanner couldn't work in the daylight, like in the
Right.
direct sunshine, because
Yeah.
it's blocked the camera. So we actually, like, there's all the time these hurdles that we came over.
We needed to overcome.
Yeah.
On the go as well, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it seemed like the first few days we were doing the scanning was inside,
Yeah.
no direct sunlight.
Yeah.
But then we had like over a week of kind of direct sunlight. So there we were building little curtains around the scanners.
Yeah.
It was kind of constant learning actually with the equipment. Shiffnas building, like you said, those tables which were, like 10 centimeters high, because we were going to be in remote areas. I mean, it was.
Yeah. But everyone was so helpful as well, because we really needed Shiffnas translation help, because obviously some people didn't speak English.
Yeah.
And also, like, when visiting the tea plantation, they gave us a translator as well. So we had 2 translators, and that was really needed for us to be able to get the numbers we had.
Yeah.
Because 1,000 people, at least I underestimated how many people that really
Yeah.
is. It takes so much longer than we could imagine to scan that many people.
That was another kind of turning point where we met with the CEOs of that big tea plantation company, LPTIA Tea Plantations, I think, in the capital. What was the capital called again? Of Sri Lanka.
Colombo, right?
Colombo, that's right. So we went to Colombo. We met at their main office there in the city. And even at that level of the kind of social hierarchy, they were very nice and welcoming. They didn't ask for anything back. We presented the study. We were there to scan and do this kind of non-profit research project. And we took them through the assessments, and they were very happy to help us. They designated one of their managers at the tea plantation for the following days, who took us through several tea plantations, and they just gathered all their staff, and then we had about 300 people just from there.
And same thing there. They cooked food for us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just out of generosity.
Yeah.
They didn't have to do that. And
No.
as we heard, they typically don't even take tourists on
No.
these tea plantations.
Mhm.
So we got to see so many things that maybe a normal person traveling as a tourist wouldn't see.
So many things. Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing to be out in the tea plantations and the villages where the plantation workers worked as well. A lot of those villages were built by the Indian government, actually, because a lot of the people that work, the Tamil people, are originally Indian. But even there, you could see quite a beautiful kind of cooperation between the societies there as well. And I think it was very nice to see how, when we were in the villages as well, how everyone was so curious about what we were doing as well. And the thing that I wanted to see going into this study as well, apart from what we've discussed before, like the genetics things, is the difference of foot shape across age groups, right? Because I was really curious to see how the shape of feet of the elderly people look, because a lot of people also blame age as to being a factor of having certain conditions and foot deformities. And there, what did we see? We saw people that were in their 70s, 80s that could sit in a deep squat comfortably, that had beautiful, strong feet, that would walk, and then their big toe would kind of splay. All their toes would splay out in the gait cycle. It was, I think it was impressive to see. I mean, they had their own health issues as well, which we saw due to malnourishment and other factors, obviously, and the conditions that they would be working with. But if we're just looking at the condition or the shape of the feet, it was amazing.
Yeah, and it was so cool, speaking of Shiffnas, how he really took us to all these places. I mean, like, without his help, how would we have found these places?
True.
A lot of them. And bringing us up to small communities where it felt like a tourist that had never been, to be frank. And just being able to, because he was kind of like a go-getter too, right? His personality.
Mm-hmm.
He would be able to go and just speak to anyone.
Yeah.
And be like, explain to them, okay, we have these guys from Europe that are doing the study, and can you help us to get people? No matter who it was, he would just talk to them and help us get more people to the study, which is quite amazing.
Yeah.
Literally all around Sri Lanka as well. It went the whole country, essentially. And he knew people all around. He had family in the northern part after the tea plantations. We visited the northern part of Sri Lanka, got a few hundred people there as well through his family.
I mean, exactly. And I really resonate and think quite frequently about how kind everybody was. Like, just touching on that quickly. Like, for example, we had the hotel manager who allowed us to come into the Buddhist temple. We then had the whole police department that we were scanning. We had, like you mentioned, the tea plantation. We had where we were just eating in restaurants. We noticed, hey, they have 20 or 30 staff here. Can we scan them? We didn't get any resistance apart from those early days where it was like, I'd love to help you, but I really need to speak to my manager. It wasn't like I don't think we ever got like a no. It was just that they didn't feel comfortable in their position. So it was absolutely, I mean, if you try to do that same thing in like a Western country, I think you'd be faced with a lot more resistance.
Yeah.
Much harder.
Yeah.
Much harder. And I think also, I mean, people were in general curious because they also thought, oh, maybe I can get some answers to why something hurts or something like that. But yeah, I mean, he literally drove us across the whole country, and he was working same amount of hours that we were, from early morning to late night, and it's great to have him with us for dinners and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I mean, literally, we some days we didn't have time for lunch. We were working so many hours and just trying to get this thing going. And he was, I mean, we needed him for every scan because he needed to translate the questionnaire. So he worked the same hours we did. So it was, I mean, he literally lived our life those days, and it was not like, you know, just hiring someone. He was so invested in the project as well.
Yeah.
So
he was the fifth member of the team, really.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Which also then, I mean, in the end, where we really wanted to show our appreciation towards him. And I mean, I think just short about his story, he had been in Qatar to provide for his family, right? And
he was helping during the build of the World Cup, right?
Exactly, yeah. So being away from his newborn son for up to 2 years, I think.
Yeah.
And you realize that it's another kind of struggle, right? To just make that sacrifice for the family, to be able to send some money back. And his goal was really to get his own job and to have more of a stable life. And at the end of it, we said, okay, let's do what we can with the resources that we have. And we helped him get his own tuk-tuk, which was his dream, really.
Yeah, because he was borrowing his dad's tuk-tuk when we met him.
When he met us, yeah.
And he hadn't actually long been back in Sri Lanka either.
No.
Right? It was just, was it weeks or a month since he got back from Qatar?
Yeah, and just talking about coincidences and like how life happens, like, because I think you may remember he was with a client first, and then when we met him the first day.
Yeah, so we discovered this quite late on, didn't we? When we were kind of talking about fate and those things, we saw the fate in the story that we said, where you look up to the sky. From his story, he had a customer. He took them to a location, and he was waiting outside for them, and he was waiting for a long time, and when they eventually came, they said, oh, we're going to walk home, you know. So they didn't want him anymore to work, and for him that was huge, because that was a little bit more money he could have provided to his family. And from that location, he then drove in our direction. So it was, you know, we would have never met Shiffnas if those two people chose to just go home with him. Right. So it was quite incredible, actually.
And also, like, when he told us that they had been praying for a while for him to get an opportunity of a job and stuff like that, and really him providing us with so much help and really not asking for anything in return. And when we kind of did the numbers, we kind of realized that because of inflation and gas prices going up, since he was last in Sri Lanka, he actually miscalculated and didn't make even a single cent on our.
Even,
He was breaking even on his salary.
Yeah.
So when we realized that, of course, and we were really thankful to him. So that's why we took our own personal money and we actually provided him with a tuk-tuk. So he can now have a job, really. Yeah. That felt, of course.
And I think exactly. And the interesting thing there is that from the moment we met him, of course, walking through Sri Lanka, anybody who's been there knows that you get asked to take a tuk-tuk ride quite frequently. So when he pulled up beside us, my initial thought, which was already hardwired in me, was, no, we're fine, you know. And I think I even said that actually. And Shiffnas' response was like, oh, but where do you need to go? We said, can you take us to ice cream? Yes, I can. And then the response was, I obviously asked, how much? Oh, you pay me what pay me what you think is right.
Which we had never heard before.
Which we had never heard before. Takes us to the ice cream. We have that great conversation. He then takes us back to the hotel. How much can I give you? The same response again. Give me what you can, what you think is fair. We gave him what we thought was fair, and maybe I think more.
We actually gave him, in hindsight, we thought we gave him a good salary, but in hindsight we actually gave him a little bit too little. But still, he
on
was
that one ride,
the first ride, like the first day,
right?
And still, he was as helpful, and so that showed his character so much.
Yeah.
So that's also one reason it felt even better to help him for real when at the end of the journey. Yeah.
And even though he helped us so much, he was like working so many hours, like you said. We didn't identify the struggle because he, in a sense, tried to hide it from us. And that struggle was every little bit of money he had, he was going into a bank. He never told us why. He was going into a bank just to put a few more, pounds or dollars, like if you want to think of it in that sense, like literally pounds or dollars into the bank, just so that his wife has it to continue. He didn't tell us that he had miscalculated. And that's why, like you said, coming together the last couple of days that we had him, it's like we need to do something here for him. And I think it's probably one of the nicest things I felt like I've done for somebody, an individual, and the response he had. And he still tried to refuse it. He said, no, I can't accept this. I can't accept this,
Yeah, we had to kind of force the gift upon him.
Yeah, we did.
So, yeah.
It was, I mean, he was a blessing, truly, for the study.
And a fun detail then is that he wanted to brand his new tuk-tuk with My Foot Function logo and with a white logo. So now on the streets of Negombo in Sri Lanka, there is a green tuk-tuk driving around with both of our logos on it.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this and you're ever in Negombo, Sri Lanka, make sure to look for it.
Yeah.
Take a picture of it, and we might send you something fun. Yeah, but I think that wraps it up quite well. How we had this, we completed the study, it was awesome, but we had this initial struggle, and everything really changed from that moment. And I think our conclusion of that is that it really matters what people you have around you and what people you connect with.
Yeah,
because without the help, it would have been much harder to actually complete the study.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think we would have completed it, but the numbers may have been half, right?
Yeah.
Or it would have been a lot less anyway.
Yeah, you never know where it would have taken us if we hadn't met him. But I think it felt like it was a big blessing to get him.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. So what are we talking about next time, guys?
So I think on the next episode we're going to be talking about bunions. That's a huge subject for My Foot Function. The relationship between bunions, hereditary factors, the footwear, how it influences bunions, and that's what we're going for, I think, for next episode.
And also other factors such as compensations and gait, etc. So thank you for listening in on this episode of the SoleMates podcast, and we'll see you next time.